They say a man's betrayal begins with a whisper. One reckless smile, one secret message, one night he thinks no one will ever know. But the universe has a strange way of dragging the truth to the surface. For 23 years, she stood beside him. Not as a shadow, not as a servant, but as the woman who built his life brick by brick. She carried his children, held his dreams, and sacrificed her own so he could walk through life with his head high. Then one evening, in the soft glow of the phone screen, she saw it. A name, a body half his age, a laugh drenched in vanity, temptation, and disrespect. A girl who thought youth was a weapon. A man who thought age made him bulletproof. They believed she would crumble, that a loyal woman was a weak woman. They didn't understand a simple truth. Loyalty and weakness are worlds apart. Loyalty forgives, weakness tolerates, and she was done tolerating. She didn't scream, she didn't beg, she didn't rip her hair out like a desperate woman who lost her place in the world. No, she became silent. The kind of silence that rattles the bones of those who wronged you. The kind of silence that signals the beginning of war. A mature woman doesn't hunt attention, she hunts justice. And when she strikes, she doesn't scratch, she destroys. Because younger women bring excitement, but mature women bring consequences. The midlife betrayal is never loud at first. It begins with whispers that crawl beneath the surface of a once solid marriage, like rust eating at steel. She knew something was wrong long before the evidence appeared. It was in the way his eyes never rested on her anymore, but wandered to glowing phone screens and the reflection of his own ego. It was in the way dinners became rushed, excuses became routine, and affection became a memory, reserved only for anniversaries and social gatherings where people watched. She was a woman who had spent half her life building a home, raising children, smoothing his rough ambitions into victories. She stood beside him when creditors circled, when bankruptcy threatened, when he doubted himself and wanted to quit. She stayed even when it hurt. She stitched the family's wounds, not because she was weak, but because she believed loyalty meant something. And then one day, his betrayal wasn't a crack anymore. It was a shattering. She found the messages in his phone like a fist to the chest. Not just flirtations, but confessions of passion to a woman barely older than their daughter. Photographs of dinners, hotel rooms, vacations he claimed were business trips. He hadn't simply strayed. He had replaced her. He spoke to the girl with the arrogance of a man who felt reborn, who believed he deserved more excitement, more attention, more validation. He flaunted her innocence, her flattery, the way she made him feel young. He believed she was the proof that age could be outrun, that maturity was a prison he could escape. He thought he was the hero of a second life. In that moment, the wife didn't scream, she didn't collapse, she didn't beg. She felt something colder, heavier, something powerful, settle in her bones. Betrayal is a strange thing. It kills the version of you who still believes in mercy. It resurrects the version of you who understands consequences. She watched him laugh at the girl's texts, watched him hide his phone under pillows like a teenager, watched him come home late smelling of rented perfume and false promises. And she said nothing. He mistook that silence for weakness. He thought maturity means acceptance, that age meant fear, that women who have given too much no longer know how to fight. But he did not understand what time gives a woman. Time does not dull her. Time sharpens her. It teaches her survival, composure, patience. While he was chasing youth, she was remembering every sacrifice she had made. The nights working double shifts to keep their mortgage paid. The promotions she turned down to stay home with sick children. The parties she hosted to boost his career, the friends she lost defending his mistakes. He had not merely betrayed his wife. He had insulted the empire that she helped him build. And she understood, with a clarity that froze the blood in her veins, she didn't need his love anymore. She didn't need his validation. She didn't even need his loyalty. What she needed was justice. In that clarity, the betrayal transformed. It was no longer about a younger woman. It was about a man who forgot the worth of the queen who made him a king. He chose excitement. he would learn consequences. Mature women do not fight with tears. They fight with strategy. They don't chase, they destroy. And she was about to teach him a lesson he would never forget. The young woman was not the temptation. She was simply the mirror that showed him exactly what he wanted to see: a man untouched by time, untamed by responsibility, unshaken by his own aging reflection. He looked at her like she was a fountain of youth, a ticket back to the version of himself he believed the world owed him. He called it freedom. In truth, it was decay disguised as excitement. His laughter changed first, loud, forced, shallow, the kind of laughter a teenager uses to show off in front of friends. He returned home smelling like cologne he never used to wear, hair gel slicked back, like he was auditioning for a role he had already aged out of. He wore clothes too small, colors too young, shoes too trendy. The wife who had once lovingly ironed his suits watched him slowly transform into a parody of teenage confidence, an aging man desperate to outrun time. He started treating commitment like a burden, the marriage like an outdated routine. He looked at the younger woman and saw adventure, chaos, a reckless flame to light his ego on fire. He didn't see responsibility, or depth, or loyalty, only a dopamine hit that made his insecurity disappear. She praised his jokes, told him he wasn't like other men his age, fed the fantasy that he was exceptional, powerful, desired. He swallowed every word like it was opium. And somewhere in that haze, he convinced himself that his wife was the problem. Too mature, too composed, too stable. Aging became a villain, not a journey. Stability became suffocation, not love. He stopped seeing the woman who held his hand through his failures, who worked alongside him when the business struggled, who raised children while he built his career. The woman who lent him her spine when his was too weak. He didn't remember how she stayed up through his surgeries, how she defended him when people mocked his mistakes, how she believed in his potential when the world laughed. All he saw was a reflection of his own fading youth. The younger woman didn't love him. She admired the version of him he pretended to be, and he clung to it because he feared a truth he had never confronted: aging doesn't weaken a man. Immaturity does. Youth didn't choose him because he was special. It chose him because he was predictable. He was another middle-aged man ready to trade loyalty for temporary validation. She was not the first in her circle to find such a target, and she would not be the last. The wife watched quietly as he drifted, ego leading him like a blindfolded fool toward the cliff. She didn't scream, didn't fight, didn't beg for his attention. She understood something he could not. Youth may bring excitement, but maturity brings consequences. The affair was not a secret explosion. It was a slow erosion, a steady leak in the walls of their home that nobody noticed until everything cracked. Invitations to family dinners suddenly came with awkward pauses. Group chats fell silent. Friends didn't know how to look her in the eye, some out of pity, some out of embarrassment. His own children avoided him, sensing the fracture before the adults admitted it. What he called new love was not love at all. It was chaos tearing a 30-year foundation apart. The wife sat at the center of silent humiliation. Every whispered conversation at work, every sympathetic glance from neighbors, every pitiful shrug from in-laws. Each one was a knife disguised as concern. He wasn't satisfied with betrayal. He needed validation. He flaunted the young woman like a trophy, posting pictures, smiling in public, pretending age didn't exist. He didn't know he was becoming a spectacle. A man throwing away loyalty for novelty. A man burning down a history for a moment of applause. The younger woman encouraged every spark. She didn't care about marriage, stability, honor. She cared about attention, resources, convenience. She fed him compliments because they were currency, and he traded everything for them: time, affection, reputation. The world around them watched the scene unfold like a tragedy everyone anticipated but never wanted to witness. The wife knew that anger is a weapon, but dignity is artillery. She refused to scream. She refused to humiliate herself chasing him. Instead, she held the silence that frightened him more than any argument. That silence reminded him of who she truly was, the woman who built his success brick by brick. The stability he took for granted, the anchor that never drifted even when storms swallowed the horizon. And while he spiraled, she took inventory, not of her pain, but of his mistakes. She traced the broken foundation to its source, not the young woman, not temptation, but the rotting ego of a man who forgot that maturity is power. When the world shifted and consequences rippled through their circle, it was not the affair that destroyed him. It was the pathetic realization that the young woman wasn't impressed anymore. She grew bored. His novelty faded. The excitement died, and while he stood exposed, reputation crumbling, the wife stepped forward with calm determination. Betrayal had cracked the foundation, but she would be the one to rebuild it, and he would be forced to live in the ruins he created. The strategic calm was not born from weakness, it was forged in the fire of betrayal. When she stumbled upon the truth, there was no screaming, no shattered glass, no begging at his feet. She simply stood there, spine straight, while the world she spent decades building collapsed like ash around her. Her husband, intoxicated by the illusion of youth, thought her silence meant surrender. But silence from a mature woman is never surrender. It is calculation. She felt the sting of every lie, every secret message, every moment he thought she was blind. It burned through her veins, not as despair, but as an awakening. She realized in that instant that the version of herself that had sacrificed, cooked dinners, wiped tears, and held a family together, had been buried under years of loyalty he never deserved. And so, she resurrected a stronger version, one that did not cry, but planned. In the dark hours of the night, she sat alone at her kitchen table, the same table where he had once laughed with her, smiled at her, touched her hand with promises he would later betray. Now the table became her battlefield. She opened bank statements, traced suspicious transactions, spotted hotel charges disguised as business meetings, and accounts he thought she would never find. Every number was a confession. Every receipt was a betrayal carved in paper. And she didn't rush. She didn't confront him. She let him continue dancing in his fantasy, letting his arrogance dig the grave he would soon fall into. While he flaunted youth, she built an empire of evidence. While he flirted with illusion, she gathered truth sharp enough to cut through every lie. She became a ghost in her own home, present but unreadable. He couldn't see her strategy forming beneath her calm smile. She studied state divorce laws, learning about asset division, adultery clauses, tax liabilities. She met with lawyers quietly, dressed in simple clothes, never hinting at the storm she carried. Her attorney, a shark in a suit, listened as she laid the foundation of her plan. Documents, timestamps, transfers, screenshots, not speculation, not anger, facts, cold, irrefutable, lethal. She didn't want to hurt him emotionally anymore. She wanted to dismantle everything he thought he controlled. She became polite, even affectionate. She asked how his meetings went, kissed his cheek when he left, and let his guard fall lower with every passing day. He believed he had already won. A younger woman smiled at him, stroked his ego, made him feel like a king who could betray a queen without consequence. He saw wrinkles on his wife's face, bags under her eyes, and interpreted them as weakness, never recognizing they were battle scars, proof of survival. Mature women are not broken by betrayal, they are sharpened by it. And he would soon learn that she was not the woman he abandoned. She was the weapon he thought he would never face. Every late night whisper from his mistress, every lie he told, every secret rendezvous only strengthened her resolve. When he laughed at her old-fashioned values, she memorized the moment. When he dismissed her concerns, she engraved it into her heart. For him this was excitement, a temporary rush. For her this was war, and she would win it with the same qualities he underestimated: patience, intelligence, discipline, and a spine made of steel. This was the strategic calm, not a pause before surrender, but the silence before devastation. There is a moment in every betrayal when the blade that sliced the heart is turned back toward the one who wielded it. Silent, sharp, and merciless. She waited for that moment. when his ego reached its highest peak, when he thought he had already won, when he paraded his new, young excitement. Like a trophy in public, she struck. She didn't scream, didn't point fingers, didn't throw curses like a weak, wounded spouse. She came armed with proof. Bank records, hotel receipts, private chats, signed guarantees, and the trail of lies he never thought she had the intelligence or patience to uncover. Her husband, drunk on attention and youth, thought she was broken, defeated, and out of the game. He laughed when she stopped arguing. He mistook her silence for surrender. What he didn't understand was that silence is the sound of strategy being sharpened into a weapon. The night she chose was deliberate. Their anniversary gala, hundreds of guests, business partners, family members, executives, even his mistress posing as a business consultant. He walked around the room basking in admiration, wearing the arrogance of a man who believed he could not fall. Then she rose, calm, graceful, a queen reclaiming her throne. The microphone amplified her voice, not shaky, not emotional, but composed with the frost of controlled power. She thanked the crowd, thanked her husband for 25 years of loyalty and partnership, and then carefully unfolded the truth. Screens lit up, the projector turned into a guillotine. Photos of his hotel nights, screenshots of his flirtations, copies of bank transfers to the young woman who begged him for rent, cosmetic surgery, designer bags. The room turned into a courtroom and the world became jury. His business partners stared in disgust. His children froze, betrayal shattered across their eyes. His parents hid their faces. The mistress, once smug and inflated with youthful confidence, shrank into a trembling shadow. The humiliation didn't need her rage, because humiliation delivered itself. He tried to rush toward her, to stop the exposure, to silence the storm. But she had already prepared the legal paperwork. The lawyer walked in like a soldier entering an execution room. Papers waiting to be signed. Divorce terms that cut deep. She kept the house, the savings, the cars, and the retirement funds. He had already signed the marriage agreements years ago, believing she would never use them. When he stuttered, pleading for mercy, she didn't scream. She simply looked him in the eyes and said the words that shattered him more than any slap ever could. You treated me like I was aging out of your life. Remember this, I built it. I own it. You destroyed only yourself. The world around him fell apart. Phones recorded. Whispers spread like fire. His reputation died in real time, killed not by a tantrum, but by truth sharpened like a blade. The consequence he thought would never reach him swallowed him whole. Mature women don't just react. They dismantle. They don't chase revenge. They deliver it. Revenge is not the end. It is the doorway to rebirth. After she dismantled him, after she left him exposed to the consequences of his own greed, she didn't sit in the ashes. She built. She invested. She reclaimed every part of herself he tried to bury. While he struggled to pay lawyers, she was out buying flowers for her new home. While he begged the mistress for help, she was signing documents securing her new business. While he climbed into debt, she attended networking events with her head high, confidence rising like sunrise after a brutal night. The divorce didn't leave her lonely. It liberated her. Silence had been her strongest weapon. Freedom became her greatest victory. She made peace with the mirror. No more questioning her worth, no more measuring her beauty through a man's midlife crisis. She remembered the woman she once was before marriage, ambitious, brilliant, unstoppable. The betrayal didn't kill her heart, it resurrected her fire. Her body carried scars of motherhood, years of sacrifice, long nights building a life beside a man who never understood her strength. But those scars became badges of survival, not signs of age, signs of evolution. Younger women brought excitement for a fleeting season, but she brought storms, consequences, and wisdom carved from experience. Months later, she saw him again, not the king he once pretended to be, but a lost man walking alone. The mistress had vanished. His friends avoided him. The business partners replaced him. His pride had no place to hide. He tried to smile, he tried to look strong, but she could see the fear in his eyes, the fear of a man who finally understood that power, doesn't come from applause or youth or ego. Power comes from the woman who never bends. Power comes from dignity. He asked if they could talk. She nodded, but only long enough to say, "I forgive you, but I will never return to you." Forgiveness was her crown, walking away was her sword. The revenge was already complete. His downfall was his lesson. Her rebirth was her legacy. Mature women don't shout. They calculate, they rebuild, they rise. And when the dust settles, the world finally learns. You may play with younger bodies, but you never underestimate a woman who has survived life. Revenge stories are not about pain. They are about transformation. They begin in weakness, but they end in power. This woman, betrayed, discarded, underestimated, did not simply survive her husband's insult to their decades together. She evolved. She watched a man throw away his life for a girl who provided him only the illusion of youth, a cheap spark that flickered out the very moment real consequences arrived. And instead of screaming, begging, or collapsing, she entered a silence that could cut through steel. The silence of strategy. The silence of a warrior sharpening her blade. She studied every shadow of his infidelity, every bank statement, every recorded call, every piece of evidence where he bragged about a future with someone who only saw him as a temporary meal ticket. She used the same arrogance that made him weak as the leverage that made her strong. And when she stood up to strike, she didn't aim for his heart. She aimed for his throne, his assets, reputation, house, business, and the image he worshipped more than any woman, his own ego. The day she confronted him, she did not cry. She did not tremble. She did not ask him, why? She asked nothing, because she already knew everything. The bank accounts were frozen. The lawyers were waiting. The divorce papers were ironclad. And the mistress, she was nothing more than an audience to his downfall. When he stood speechless, losing his empire piece by piece, she watched without emotion. Not because she lacked a heart, but because she finally remembered how to protect it. He spent years believing younger women bring excitement, that they validate him, that they are trophies for his ego. But he forgot one truth, the truth that tore him apart. Mature women do not fight for attention. They command respect. They are storms. And when betrayed, they do not chase revenge, they deliver consequences. Her final step was not vengeance, it was liberation. She walked out with her head high, her finances secured, her dignity untouched, her future crystal clear. She didn't just close the chapter, she authored her own sequel. She built a life where she was no longer someone's shadow. She was her own sun. Her success was not built to show him what he lost. It was built to show herself what she always had. Let this story remind every person who has been betrayed. You do not need to destroy yourself to punish someone. You only need to rebuild your life and let them watch. If this story moved you, if it gave you strength, courage, or clarity, don't keep it to yourself. Hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and join our community of powerful voices who rise above pain. Subscribe to Betty's Stories. Every day we bring you stories of resilience, truth, heartbreak, and triumph. Together, we grow stronger, louder, and more fearless. You are not weak. You are not done. You are a force, just waiting to be awakened.